What is going down, faithful? We got a very special guest. We got Damon Bruce in the building. We're going to talk 49ers football, return of Christian McCaffrey, and how the San Francisco 49ers get back on track after the bye week. We're going to get into it all right after this. Let's go. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. All right, before we open it up and give Damon the floor, I got to give a little intro to my guy. If you guys are, outside of the Bay Area, maybe not familiar with, Bay Area media, Damon Bruce is a legend around these parts. I remember the first time he had a show on 95.7 The Game hosting the afternoon drive hour. I tapped in with them, was locked in ever since. It was really cool. Got to meet Damon at the Super Bowl. Really excited to have you on. What is up, Damon? How is it going, man?
Brad, it is great to see you. Thanks for coming on the show that day. It was great getting to talk to you at the Super Bowl. And let me tell you, you talk about legends. You, sir, are the YouTube legend. I mean, I am over here. I'm the new guy. I'm the neophyte walking through the forest trying to figure out how it all works. And I have watched what you do to try to learn from one of the best in the business over here on how to do it over here. And I've learned an awful lot from watching you, man. You are fantastic at what you do. Your audience is huge, and there's a reason for that. So as I am the new guy over here on YouTube, it's an awesome thing to be able to join you for this show today, being streamed on both of our channels, man. So I feel like I'm finally in the big time now that I get to talk to Brad Graham. So it's great to have you. It's great to be with you. It's great to have you. And I'm glad that we were finally able to put this together. This has been months in the making. We finally found the day to do it.
Damon got to experience what it's like to try to get a hold of me, and it's quite a challenge, and I give him a ton of credit for persevering, following up multiple times, but I'm super excited that we're able to get this going. Shout out to Dave for becoming a YouTube channel member.
It's a golf clap, absolutely.
Also, make sure you go to sub to Damon's channel as well. But Damon, let's hop into this. The San Francisco 49ers, they start 4-4 at the beginning of the season. What was kind of your just overall takeaway from that first portion of the year? Because kind of felt like a roller coaster ride. It was up, down, up, down, up, down. We had 3 must-win games in the first 8 games of the year. What was your just overall takeaway from how they started?
There's all the anxiety that comes with any NFL weekend. And, if we're not overreacting, we're not reacting at all these days. So there was so much overreaction. And, through all of it, the thing that I kept returning to is, given the circumstances of the offseason, given all the bad vibes that Mike Silver has covered so, dramatically as he's covered this team, given all of the injuries to key players and holdouts and slow starts, I honestly thought that, 4-4 was about right. I mean, it really is. It's not where anybody wanted to be, but given the circumstances and given everything as it unfolded in front of us, it's about right. And the truth is, had their special teams just paid a little bit more attention, had 1 or 2 more field goals turned into red zone touchdowns, 4-4 could have easily been 6-2. They're not far away from being a very good football team, but of course everybody overreacts and will tell you that 4-4 means you're closer to being a sub 500 football team. I think they're much closer to being the team that you remember than this new team that is some bumbling, stumbling, trying to desperately hold its window open. There's a lot of football left. And if Christian McCaffrey is a part of it, Brad, we know what that means for the 49ers. This guy holds the skeleton key of their very best brand of football. And hopefully he's still got it on their key ring, man, because with him, they are something that they're incapable of being without him.
Getting Christian McCaffrey back is just such a shot in the arm for this team. You heard Brock Purdy talk about it just a couple minutes ago at the podium. Just excited to have a guy like that back, and everything that we've heard about, Christian McCaffrey and covering Christian McCaffrey is he is the ultimate football player. When you talk about taking care of your body, preparation, everything that you put into the game that maybe you don't see out in the open, all the behind the scenes things, CMC is just a difference maker. And obviously, that was shown by being the offensive player of the year last season. And when you don't have that guy to start the year, you're trotting out Jordan Mason. You obviously have Brandon Ayuk, who's coming off a holdout, and you're coming off a tumultuous off season. And we understand what happened at the end of the year. And it's a lot of stuff kind of piled into one moment, and it's just kind of rocky through the first portion of the year. I have a question for you, as someone who has covered, sports across the nation for a long period of time. Do you feel like things have become more hyperbolic in regards to week in, week out analysis? Because I do agree that there were some concerning things that we were seeing from a trends perspective from 49ers offense, defense, and special teams. But to your point of the overreaction, it just felt like with every loss, the season was over. And what are your thoughts on have you seen like a change in like the trends of how
100%. 100% I have. I've watched fans go from, who would be the last to hold out hope for a really good year, turn into like they all think that they're like Skip Bayless or Stephen A. Smith, and they all want to be the very first to marketplace to declare the season over. If you think this season's over in the second half of week 2, you must be new here. Like there's a lot of football still left. And, you had people just sky is falling analysis after a 1-3 start, which is odd because it feels like just about every single Kyle Shanahan season that has actually gone somewhere has had a little bit of a slow start attached to it. But if we marinate in that, then you can't have all the anxiety and the attention that comes with, hey, I want to be the first to tell you that this season's going to absolutely suck. We're a trash can emoji now, and it's a disaster, and fire Kyle and fire Brock and rethink the whole thing and tear it all down. The Super Bowl window is closed, and it's just a disaster. I thought, don't you root for this team? Like, isn't it, if you are a Niner fan, how have they not purchased a little don't panic yet insurance among some of their fan bases? It's really weird, but this is what I'm going to call the disintegration of adults knowing how to talk about sports. And everybody just wants to be the first to pull the fire alarm where there's if there's a fire or not, it doesn't matter, because if I pull this fire alarm, holy shit, we're going to get an awful lot of attention for doing that. So I just want to be the person who does that. And we have an awful lot of people doing that way too early in the year.
I agree. And, I'm a big fan of, looking at the past and seeing, where we're going. And I don't think that, necessarily the 49ers previous slow starts necessarily just mean that, they're bound to bounce back. But it is a reference point because you have the same head coach GM pairing.
Right.
You have predominantly the same core group of players. Your Fred Warners, Trent Williams has been a part of that, George Kittle, Kyle Juszczyk. Obviously, you have a ton of guys in that locker room who have been in this spot. And I do think that's where you can look at the past and be like, these guys have weathered storms before. This isn't first storm they've been through. So that's where I think you talk about the benefit of the doubt, right? Is like, listen, yes, this season did not start, I think, how any of us really anticipated. I think heading into the year, what weren't the 49ers favored in every single regular season game to win? Like, there was a lot of high expectation, especially coming off a Super Bowl, and obviously Christian McCaffrey and Brock Purdy heading into his second year, getting a full off. Like, we understand all the storylines, right? And so when it starts off a little jarring and you lose to the Rams in week 2, and then you fall to the Arizona Cardinals, 2 games, like you mentioned, they should have won. It's just it's okay to be measured, right? And be like, you know what? Yes, there are things that need to be fixed, corrected, and adjusted. But man, you look at the injuries, you look at a lot of different variables that went into the start, and it's like, all right, they got to the bye 4-4. Now they're getting players back. Jawan Jennings missed 2 games. He's going to be back. We already know CMC is the big hot ticket coming back. Guys, rookies are playing better now. Malik Mustafa, Isaac Garendo, Dominic Pooney has been a godsend on the offensive line. So, man, these guys, there's still a lot of football left, and they're trending. They're still trending in the right direction.
Just ask anybody, would you rather be the best team in the NFL in September or December? You want to choose December if you're offered that choice. I didn't think the 49ers really had the opportunity to be the best team that they could be, given the injuries, given the holdouts, the hold-ins, whatever you want to say, the slow start. And even through all of it, the frustrating losses, as you said, to division opponents, it wasn't like terrible football. It was underachieving. It was disappointing on some levels, but this isn't the worst defense. It's just not as good as it used to be, and it can't be until Dre Greenlaw is back, until there's somebody who's going to show up with Nick Bosa to help create pressures. It just can't be all Bosa, Warner, and Lenore saving everybody's bacon week in, week out. There are other guys that really have to play themselves into the season. And if there's one singular lesson that I really hope that the Niners can take, because seasons are not related. Whatever happened last year really isn't an indicator of what might happen this year. Hell, we get halves of the same football game that feel like they're not even related. There's so much that can change in momentum of a game, much less 100%. Week to week, right? The 49ers can have 4 different games in the same football game, it feels like at times. And that is a level of inconsistency which drives some people a little nuts at times, but they're truly a very consistent team. And I just think that they are, with Christian McCaffrey, capable of something that is so different than what we've already seen. And, the number one brand of analysis to what is hurting the 49ers is, well, they got wide receivers who can't beat man coverage. They're not as fast as they used to be. Everybody got slow at the same time. I think there's an element of truth to that, Brad. But what is also true is nobody puts a defense's eyes into the backfield like Christian McCaffrey. And if your eyes are over here, getting beat by your man right here is a little easier to do. Watch some separation happen when McCaffrey is back in the room. It's not that Debo is slow. It's that Debo can be focused on now with really, you're not worried about Jordan Mason popping one off like the way Christian McCaffrey had. McCaffrey is a different brand of attention. Jordan Mason is a good player you need to worry about defending. Christian McCaffrey is the type of player that keeps dudes up at night. So I just think that he is such a force multiplier to everything that the 49ers do. And I'm probably putting too much responsibility on a dude who hasn't played yet with bilateral Achilles tendonitis, whatever the hell that even is. But I really do think that if he is back, and now you're starting to hear, I think, a little truth trickle out, like, oh, he was actually good enough to play against the Dallas Cowboys. They just wanted to buy him a little bit more time, in the name of extra precaution. It sounds like this guy is going to come back with a semi-normal workload to be foisted upon him pretty soon here. And, I'm not a nervous Nancy. I am not worried about the next injury. There is no way in football to prevent the next injury. I do hope there is a measurement of workload doled out to our Christian McCaffrey decisions. And Kyle probably could have done Christian McCaffrey a little help last year, discovering that Jordan Mason is an NFL player last year, which was not a discovery this team made. But I think he's going to change everything. And I think he's going to be at a near full workload. And if you are the 49ers trying to keep this championship window open, with all due respect to all McCaffreys everywhere, run him into the ground. You're trying to win a Super Bowl now. Next year, promise to no one. So you try to do it all right now, and let's see what happens.
Well, I think Christian McCaffrey would have it the same exact way. you got to put yourself in his shoes, and you got to think about just how disappointing of a season this has been for him. Missing, 9 games, 8 games, or whatever it was, with the injury, how it happened, especially with the high profile, Madden cover. I mean,
All right, first of all,
how,
that curse is fucking real, right? Good God. Like that,
dude, that took us out.
if I am the San Francisco 49ers, I am writing into everybody's contract. I don't care how popular you become or what awards you win. You are not doing Madden. You're not a cover athlete.
Oh my gosh, dude. There was so much. Obviously, the Madden consensus number one overall pick in fantasy. And I mean, fantasy is bigger than it's ever been, especially with the DFS and all of those things. And so you have so many casual observers, more eyes on players like CMC than ever before.
Right.
And then the way it happened too, coming down minutes before, like maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes before kickoff on Monday Night Football.
Like that was weird about the whole thing, wasn't it? That's what, Kruger and I were doing. Like, I don't know what to believe. I certainly know not to believe the 49ers because this is just a little odd. You don't go from a player of this profile, call him a game time decision scratch, and then not see him for the next 2 months. They had to have been aware of a level of severity for McCaffrey that doesn't match the timeline of the injury announcement. And that is, maybe the 49ers getting a little fugazi on the real rules of how injuries are supposed to be reported. And then Jordan Mason had the bad taste in his mouth. If when did you know? And that whole weird thing to begin the year. Yeah, and that was unfortunate. And maybe the 49ers did try to play a little skullduggery, but the whole thing was really, really odd. Luckily, it feels like we're at the end of this very odd journey. And for the first time this Sunday against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, if indeed he does go, I feel like it's going to be the first time that we're actually going to see the 49ers in 2024. That's how much of a difference maker I believe Christian McCaffrey is. He is not a important 49er. I think he's singularly the important 49er. So let's see.
Absolutely. And I remember, like we do, Damon, we talk about at the trade deadline, who are the players? Obviously, the trade deadline just passed. 49ers didn't make any crazy splash moves or anything. But last year, CMC was the hot name. Like, CMC feels like he would be a great addition. And one of the things that I felt of why he would is because of the gravity. And as you know, as someone who's covered the Golden State Warriors, Steph Curry, all the gravity in the world. That guy runs around the court. All anyone cares about is where's Steph at? That's you. I really haven't seen something like that, at least with the San Francisco 49ers, since CMC joined. Obviously, you had Deebo Samuel in the wide back role and what he was able to do in 2021 and just really explode onto the scene. But there's a level of gravity that defenses just have to pay attention to where CMC is at all times, whether in the passing game, whether in the running game. They are constantly committing to eyes on CMC. And then you start adding Kyle Shanahan's pre-snap motions all across the formation. And that's when I really feel like the 49ers offense is at its best, because they are so worried about getting beat by Kittle, getting beat by CMC, getting beat by Deebo. And then you start pulling juice across the formation. And then Juwan Jennings comes across the formation. They're having to shift gaps. And then boom, all of a sudden Kyle hits them with the CMC on a choice route or a Texas route right off the backside of where they just shifted the linebacker out. And then he gets them in this bind. And I feel like that's what's been missing this year is we haven't seen that rhythm. We've seen it at times, but I don't think we've seen it consistently for 60 minutes from this offense. And I really do believe that Christian McCaffrey, just like you said, we're going to see it. We're going to see a much different offense, especially if CMC enters the mix like nothing ever happened. And he's going to probably be, I would say, at Damon, I don't know how you feel about this, but it feels like he's like 80% workload like he typically would, maybe even just they're just like, he's good. Let's run
Here's
it.
the thing, sparingly in between the 40s, if it's a red zone play, it's a McCaffrey play. You know, I mean, that's the thing. He has to be the antidote that solves the red zone problems, and I really think he will be. Look, I'm going to apologize to anyone on my channel who has heard me say this before, but a whole new vast audience to me on your channel, Brad. This could all sound new to them. In my entire life, I haven't seen a player just show up to a team and change the temperature of the room quite like McCaffrey did when the Niners traded for him. The only other player that I can compare it to, since, you know, being a Bay Area sports media member, is when Kevin Durant showed up. I mean, I knew that Kevin Durant was a really good basketball player, but until you start watching him and playing every single game, you cannot comprehend how good of a basketball player he really is until he's in front of you every week, every game. And look, we all knew he was at Stanford, obviously. And then he was at Carolina, and he was an MVP candidate, and blah, blah, blah. And we all knew how good he was, but I had no idea he was this good until he was playing every single game, and you're watching every snap. And, you know, the highlights that you don't see because it's a second quarter play and it's 2nd and 7. And this guy pulls 8 yards out of his ass every single time on 2nd and 7 in the second quarter. And it's just, you know, it's not a highlight play. It's not going to make the reel, but boy, does it keep the 49ers on schedule.
That's a great point.
To regurgitate one of Kyle Shanahan's favorite phrases, conflict defender. I don't think there is a player, there's any pre-snap motion, or there's any bit of, you know, I guess there's no catalyst to have a player identify who the conflict defender is more than Christian McCaffrey. You can line him up anywhere, and based how the defense is reacting, you can tell who they're worried about being on him. And I just think it's a level of seeing the matrix that will allow the Niners to get even better, that Brock Purdy will see the matrix better through Kyle's offense when they got the ultimate chess piece on the board, moving all over the board. They're going to know how to play the board better and identify conflict defenders and mismatches. And this is where McCaffrey's brilliance is just a decoy. Yeah. Really, I think, unlocks the Niners. And we haven't even seen them yet. And they still have one of the best offenses, best passing offenses, best rushing offenses, and offensive line, as much maligned as it is absolutely improved as to what it was just a year ago. All Colton McKivitz jokes aside, they're better than they were a year ago. And I just think that I think that we're going to see the 30 points per game 49ers going forward. And that's important because their defense doesn't really have that guy coming back until Dre Greenlaw comes back. And they're going to need to be north of 28 points if they're going to drop a, 6-3, 7-2 stretch and their remaining 9 games on us.
I love what you said about staying on schedule, because I think that's where the 49ers offense kind of gets out of whack a little bit, was when they're looking at 3rd and long, 3rd and 7+, it's oof, that's a tough one. But the thing that CMC brings to the table, and you mentioned it, you see it on tape all the time. There are so many times in a game where there isn't a running lane. And somehow CMC is able to find a crease. He's able to bait backers by pressing the hole, and then he cuts back and he's able to find 5-6 yards. He turns a maybe 1-2 yard gain with, no disrespect to Jordan Mason either. Jordan Mason is 4th in the NFL in rushing right now, but he has this innate ability to just find the crease and get positive yards. And that, to your point, allows the 49ers to be able to stay on schedule offensively. And then that's how you keep opposing, keep the Patrick Mahomeses on the sideline. You keep the Josh Allens on the sideline, keep the Jordan Loves on the sideline, keeps your defense fresh. And we get back to complementary football. And I think that's what, in this whole kind of conversation about Christian McCaffrey and what he means to this team and getting him back, I think he can be a huge catalyst when it comes to getting back to playing complementary football. And to your point, staying on schedule. That's how this team is able to do that. And I think that's a phenomenal point. So I'm really looking forward to. I'm hyped, man. I'm so excited to see
It's used,
CMC back.
Brad, it's used as like a defamatory statement to describe the Niners. You know, people call the Niners front runners. Well, as long as you're in front, that's a great thing to be. You know, it's like front running is good. Getting control of a game early and then suffocating it like a boa constrictor is a great way to have several successful seasons in a row. And that's what the Niners are the best at. Controlling a game, controlling time of possession, controlling down and distance. And when Kyle is in that, he's officially in his bag, as the kids love to say. And that's when they're at their best. That's when they are at their best. All jokes about 10-point leads in big games aside, you want a 10-point lead over anybody anytime you can find one in the NFL. And the Niners are very good. They're so good on script. They're good in, they're good in the first drive of the first quarter. They're good in the first drive of the second half. And that is a hallmark of Shanahan. And I just think that he's going to have such an easier time staying on schedule with his ultimate chess piece back to play with. And I can't wait to see it. And then I'm really excited about seeing what kind of complementary player Isaac Gendo can be. You know, if McCaffrey's in the slot, but you got Gendo in the backfield, let's see what that looks like. Let's see what Ricky Pearsall looks like with Christian McCaffrey taking a little heat off of him. Let's see what Pearsall looks like with just, hey, man, you're Brandon Ayuk now. So you're out here for more plays than anyone could have expected. Let's see what Jacob Cowing becomes. This has been an impressive rookie class. You know, Mustafa, Green continue to play this well on defense. I can really see. Watch how much better the 49ers defense looks if they're scoring touchdowns in the red zone offensively. It's amazing how those will be connected.
I think one of the silver linings from the CMC injury is, like you mentioned, what we've been able to see from Isaac Gendo and Jordan Mason, where last year, right, it was almost like a point. I don't know, Damon, if you were shouting from the rooftop as well, but I was saying, and I know a lot of others were saying as well, let's see a little bit Jordan Mason. Let's get a little bit of a rotation in. We love CMC and we love when CMC gets the ball, but at the same time,
give him a break.
Keep him fresh.
Give him a break.
That's a lot of wear and tear. And he takes a lot of hits. And now we know what Jordan Mason is. And we are starting to really understand what Isaac Gendo is. I think every game has gotten better. Every game. The vision has gotten better, his patience. And every day I'm like, dude, we got a bigger Raheem Mostert out here running. It's crazy.
How about this? I saw this on Twitter. I think it was Coach Yak who shared the tweet that I copied this from. In just the month of October, because everyone looks at Isaac Gendo and has basically said, like, either you're excited or you want to be in this slow your roll down. The guy's had one big long run in his career and that's it. It's better than that. In the month of October, he's had 30 carries for 208 yards. That is 6.9 yards per carry, a touchdown, 4 rushes of 10 or more yards, which count as explosive plays, 5 forced missed tackles, and 2 game-sealing runs where one of them he, took a little dive before he scored, whether or not he should have or shouldn't have. That can be debated. In the second one, he did make the right choice to go down right where he did. So he seems to be smart. He seems to be coachable. And if you lack initial instincts, you better be coachable. And it feels like it's starting to come together. This league is difficult, man. And for some running backs, for some wide receivers and players, it takes a while feeling around in a dark room for the switch on the wall. But like once they find it, they flip the switch and it all starts making sense. And it feels like that's starting to happen for Gendo. If Ricky Pearsall, again, is a quick study, and he felt like he took like a significant step forward from just game 2 from game 1. Mm-hmm. if he continues to take these strides of improvement week in, week out, what have you got 4 weeks from now with Ricky Pearsall? I can't wait to see what that player looks like. Juwan Jennings is going to be thrust into more action. Given how unimpressive Brandon Ayuk was, that's a good thing. Now, I really hope it all works out for Ayuk. Everyone knows what the investment was, whether you endorsed it or not, it doesn't matter. The Niners have committed a ton of money to a player that absolutely was an important piece and very good. But boy, it wasn't good at all. As a matter of fact, the worst passer rating, I saw this today, Brad, the worst passer rating from a quarterback to a single target with 40 or more attempts in the NFL so far this season was Brock Purdy to Brandon Ayuk, which produced just a 61.4 passer rating. It was a disaster. Going to Ayuk, trying to activate him. I understand why Shanahan was doing it, but it did no favors to keep this team on schedule. And, they tried to get Brandon Ayuk the practice that he missed in the regular season. And that's a great way to go about losing football games. So I went down this train of thought before, and then I got off of it. Let me hop back on real quick. The number one lesson that I hope the 49ers take from this year and apply towards future seasons, because, like we were saying, no 2 seasons are really connected, but your philosophy and how you approach your off season, that is something that you can do the same or update year in, year out. I really hope the 49ers put to bed this level of slowly doing business in their contract negotiations with players they know they want to retain. If you got a player that you want, i.e. Trent Williams, no gray area there. Ayuk came with gray area due to a young man and wanderlust, and I like Jaden Daniels and blah, blah, blah. There was no doubt at all that you wanted Trent Williams for this season. Pay him immediately, get him in immediately, and then give him all the vet days off that he needs through training camp, because who gives a shit? But he needs to be there the same way Brandon Ayuk needed to be there in the offseason to avoid the slow start, which gives away early W's that you want to stack so you're not playing. It all matters a lot football in the second half, which the 49ers now have in front of them. They're all out of landing room. They got to be really good from here on out, all out of mulligans. I hope they change their business plan. I do. I hope they change it, Brad, because just we're slow to negotiate. And that's just tradition around here. Well, change your tradition. It's not helping.
I mean, you are preaching to the choir, my friend. One of the things when we're obviously looking back a little bit, my biggest thing was don't let Ayuk hold out. Don't let this last into training camp because of what we saw happen in the season. We know with already the new CBA rules and the limited practices that they have, it is already a challenge. That's why the first 4 weeks of the year is pretty much the preseason for the NFL now.
Right.
Because starters don't play during the real preseason. If they do, it's maybe a drive, maybe a half at best. And it's just not the same as it was, 10, 20, 30 years ago, where these guys were putting in work at practice, and it's just completely shifted. And we've seen what seems like an increase in non-contact injuries and slow to rhythm with offense and things like that. But to the point being is, yes, I would love to see a fundamental shift in that kind of process, especially with Brock Purdy coming down the pipe with probably, I saw some report, some unnamed executive, I believe, thinks he's going to get $65 million per year on average. And that's a big figure. And don't want to see that linger into training camp. And I think maybe some people believe it's a foregone conclusion that, they're going to get it all worked out. I'm not in that camp, Damon.
There's nothing to talk about. There's nothing to talk about. You pay that guy, you pay him immediately. That's the guy you're going forward with. And I can prove that to you because you traded away your first round draft pick that was such a disaster. And Brock Purdy literally saved all of your jobs. All of them. Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch should tithe 10% of their paychecks going forward to Brock Purdy, because they wouldn't be cashing those paychecks with Niner signatures on them had they not stumbled into him. The guy saved everything. So yeah, get that done. Get that. Look, there will be some players where going to the mattresses and into the 11th hour of a negotiation is the right thing to do. Trent Williams is not one of those guys. Brock Purdy is not one of those guys. Maybe Brandon Ayuk was one of those guys. I'm not even upset about the Ayuk negotiation, knowing how weird it all was. But you got to change, I think, the way you do business a little bit just to make the beginning of the year a little smoother. What we have is the preseason, which are the fugazi, phony games before week 1. And then from week 1 to week 4, you now have the let's see season. So you have a preseason, and then you have a let's see season. And then by about week 5, week 6, now you're starting to figure out what your football team really is. And they are starting to figure out who they really are. But you had to get through the let's see season to know who you really, really are now. So it's like there's 2 preseasons built in to all of these years now. And again, it's in any given Sunday league in the first place. And then you add all the moving parts of now early season scheduled football. It's impossible to gauge what you're looking at through 3 weeks, which brings us all the way back, Brad, to where our conversation began and the early overreacting by people who don't understand how football works. There's so many people who, because they, write for a paper or have a YouTube channel, they think they understand the league. They don't. The league is something that takes time to play out. That's how it works. There are 17 games. So to look at 3 games and go, that's it. That's it. What do you want to? What do you want to? You just forfeit the rest of the season? Like what are you talking about?
It's over.
Yeah, all over. That's it. No team has ever overcome injuries ever before, not ever, and we won't be us to be the first. So goodbye, everybody. Like, calm down. There's a lot of football still left, but again, they're officially out of a lot of football still left. Like they've screwed that formula up. So here it is. This is huge. And we're going to know everything we need to know by the end of this month.
Yeah.
By the end of the next 4 weeks, we're going to know everything. 3 huge, hard to play road games and a division opponent back at Levi's. We're going to know it all by the time we get to December.
Yep. And when you look at the NFC West right now, obviously falling to the Cardinals and Rams could be a thorn in your side at the end of the year, just based on how they are trending. Cardinals look like they're getting better. Rams are getting healthier. They just activated, I think, 2 starting offensive linemen today. They obviously get Cooper Kupp back and Puka Nacua, who kind of been dealing with injuries. And
Brett,
they look like a better team, don't they?
So you're not allowed to bet on the 49ers. So you can't choose the 49ers. You're not allowed to. Who do you think wins the West?
Not picking the San Francisco 49ers?
Can't pick the Niners. You got to go with one of the other 3 teams. Who are you most worried about?
I feel like the Cardinals.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too. Like, with all due respect to, the Rams, who feel like they're coming, and the defense is better than anyone thought.
Yeah.
The Seahawks are still 3 interceptions from Geno could come in any quarter. Like, I just
the Seahawks are still the Seahawks.
Kyler's gotten better. Yeah. And James Conner might be the least appreciated great running back in all of football. So they're an ascending team for sure. And they're going to cause more problems, and they're going to have a few more stunning wins along the way to their next Niners game too. So I would be most worried about Arizona as well.
The Cardinals surprised me last season and how they played the San Francisco 49ers. I think that was back when they had Dobbs, as their quarterback, not even with Kyler. And you could see, I think Kyle Shanahan spoke about it. He's like, they reminded me of the 2017 San Francisco 49ers, who didn't win very many games. But if you also remember that 2017 season, I think the 49ers set a record for losing the most games by 3 points. I think they lost 5 games by 3 points or less in that, early portion of the year where they went 0-9.
Right.
They were fighting, they were competing. They just weren't they were outgunned, outmatched. That's kind of like what the Cardinals were last year, and they're continuing to build. It starts with coaching and it trickles down. And yeah, the Cardinals are getting better, and they're continuing to get better. So, I think at the beginning of the year, it felt like, oh, the 49ers should walk through this division. Well, they're tied for third with the Rams right now. They're tied for second with the Rams right now, and Cardinals are sitting atop the West. So that week 18 game against the Cardinals and then that week 17 game against the Lions, man, you just look at this back half. You got Green Bay thrown in there with the Bills, back-to-back road games.
I mean,
sheesh.
I don't even want to start to try to handicap what kind of game plan or what the Bears are going to look like when they walk in here late in the season either. Like, they will either be getting closer to firing Matt Eberflus by the hour at that point in time in the season, or they will be getting closer to declaring, hey, man, Caleb Williams' first season, it's all coming together, looking pretty damn good. And they've sort of turned the corner since, Jalen Daniels Hail Married him in Washington back in week, whatever that was. It'll feel like a distant memory by the time that Bears game comes around. So yeah, I don't even know what they're going to look like by the time they get in here. Niners need, again, the 49ers need to start playing really good football right now. There is no more, oh, that one got away from us, another special teams mistake. Oh, we'll get them next week. No, you're running out of, we'll get them next week. As a matter of fact, you're pretty much out of them right here, right now. So let's see what this looks like. How many more games can the Niners lose and be a playoff team?
What, maybe 2, 3?
Right. As long as those games aren't in division. That's about right. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you feel like the bye came at the perfect time for this team?
Perfect time. Absolutely. It was the break that not everyone needed from each other, but it was the break that this team needed from the season. You can just see Kyle is just he's aging like a president. He really has. He is not having any fun this year. I don't think Kyle's had a lot of fun in the last couple of years, but it's a stressful job. It's wearing on him, on them. And I think a guy that they all agree makes everybody's job easier will hopefully provide the little bounce in the step and the fun that Christian McCaffrey, again, like, it might be a little naive to put your hope in a guy with bilateral Achilles tendonitis, but, call me naive then, because that's where I'm telling you the hope lies. That's it.
I agree.
He will change the year or he won't. And the Niners will be kind of what we looked at. The Niners will be 9-8. What do you think of that? What are you now at 9-8? Did you win the West at 9-8? If you did, fantastic. You got a home playoff game. If you didn't, you might be home. You might be home for the playoffs. So
yeah, I'm not sure 9-8 wins it.
It might. Yeah. No, if the Cardinals are as good as we think they are, it won't.
All right. So man, what a crazy year basically it has been, and a lot has been made about Nick Sorensen, and again, early trigger fingers of fire Nick Sorensen and all of those types of things. But I do feel like the defense has been trending better. Now, keep in mind, you lose Hargrave, Yetur Gross-Matos, who we don't even know because he was hurt for a big portion of training camp. He was hurt for a big portion of the year. You just dealing with injuries all over the place. How do you think the defense responds in the second half?
It's got to get better, right? I mean, they don't have much of a choice to start turning a corner here. And if it's as simple as like, just remember how to tackle guys. Like, there's way too many broken tackles against the 49ers. And I just don't understand why. Dre Greenlaw is just a badass, and maybe just by osmosis, everybody turns into a little bit more of a badass. Just having him, he's such a tone setter.
Right.
But look, Fred Warner can't do it all by himself. And Nick Bosa can't do it all by himself. As soon as either one of those guys has somebody else on their level really helping him out, whether that be the return of Greenlaw or Jalen Graham is now out there or Winters is now out there or Devondre Campbell. I've kind of given up on Devondre Campbell making a real impact. But Leonard Floyd, we're looking at you. Khalil Davis, welcome to the team. Looking at you. Malik Collins, more reps for you. I think should make this a better run defense. And then Mustafa, just continue to figure it out. Jair Brown, continue to figure it out. Learn how to play in both directions, going forwards and backwards. Renardo Green, very impressive. How much more impressive can you get between now and the end of the year? I think Diamador Lenore has officially taken the title of this team's best cornerback. And we all know that Mooney Ward is going through something so personal, so sad right now. There's no room for us to start telling him who he needs to be in the second half.
Right.
But if he starts playing like the Mooney Ward we remember from last year, and we now know why this man might not have been as focused on this season because his heart and his head were with his family as they were going through such a trying time here. Some people find solace through tragedy in work. Mm-hmm. And if Mooney Ward finds that solace on the field and it's what he needs to feel normal again, I hope that happens for him. And again, I think the 49ers would benefit greatly from that happening. So, heartbroken for his family, his wife, all the Wards, his extended family going through something so awful, so dreadful. And I think we should let everyone know that we were supposed to do this a week ago. And it was the day where we learned of the sad passing. And the two of us reached out to each other and just said, no, it would be wrong to just go and talk football. So that's why we postponed this once again. I think we made the right decision, by the way. So good on us. And I heard the Niners have been just ever present in giving that young man all he needs to cope and get through this right now. And so, they're a really well-run organization. They're a team I think that you can be proud of rooting for when you hear about, the stability they're trying to be for a man who's going through something that's so devastating right now we can't even comprehend. But hopefully it all turns into refocused football in the second half. Again, the Niners defense, I don't think great defense, Brad, is really available for them. Just play a little bit better than this. Play yourself to the edge of that top 10 NFL defense. And if you're putting up 28, 32 a game, that's a winning formula.
I think you can apply the 49ers defense, 49ers offense, even special teams across the board. They've all played well in spots. It's now expanding that to a greater body of work and doing it again just for 60 minutes and getting into that complementary type of rhythm, offense, defense, special teams. And if they can do that, and if CMC is a huge catalyst to that, Dre Greenlaw potentially coming back, I am intrigued by Khalil Davis. He strikes me as a pretty explosive interior defensive tackle. Now, he hasn't, produced any type of really crazy numbers or anything like that. But, I was very hesitant about the impact of Malik Collins when the 49ers got him in here. Pleasantly surprised with what he's been able to do this season. And if he can have some kind of impact into the rotation, obviously Kevin Givens has kind of been banged up recently. Jordan Elliott's been banged up recently. If you can get any type of impact out of him, I mean, you look at what Sam O's been able to do I had zero expectations.
It's been fantastic.
He's been great.
Fantastic.
And so if these guys can continue to find and continue to just bring everything together, I think it really all just comes down to simplifying it to getting into a rhythm. And that's all three phases. And if they can do that and get back into that flow, it's like a flow state almost, where they're not stressing, there's no anxiety, they're just playing ball. Just kids on the field playing ball. Get back to that. They could really do some damage.
Sorensen's first year as defensive coordinator, Brandon Staley's first year here as whatever he is, whatever his job title or whatever he does. It's his first year doing it here. He's helping Sorensen. He's the Svengali of how the secondary operates. All of these rookies galore, inexperienced players in the secondary, funneling new people in on all three phases of the defense. It shouldn't surprise anybody that they've had some communication issues. Mm-hmm. They're figuring it all out. Now, what's the old saying? You don't want to learn how to hit the curveball when you get to the big leagues. You better know it before you get here. And every single game is so broken down and overanalyzed. That can never happen on a football field. Well, that does happen on a football field. It happens to every team in every game, especially teams with new languages, new defensive coordinators, new teammates. It takes more than just a handful of practices for it to be right. For 65 defensive plays, no one was out of position, not once all day today. That's a hard thing to actually put together. Continuity is the hardest thing to find on a football field. And when you do have it, and when you do find it, make sweet, sweet love to it and protect it, because it is very rare to have 10 consistent games together due to it being, the turnover with injury, trades, free agency, just how seasons come and go. And, this player emerged as someone that we counted on, halfway through that year. And now that'll have to really roll over into next year. And that's the first 16 games. It takes time to put things together, and they don't have much time to do it. And the pressure of everybody overanalyzing everything creates even an illusion of less time. The Niners, again, 4-4 with all the moving parts and everything that we've already discussed in the first 50 minutes of our conversation here. 4-4 feels about right. Mm-hmm. Take your fandom out of it. Take your rooting interests out of it. Look back, apply everything that you know of this league and how good everyone else is at the same time. 4-4 feels about right. It really does. And so, if we can admit that feels about right, then how far off the pace of who they're supposed to be are they really? And my argument would be not that far. They're not that far away from the team that was somehow good enough to go to a Super Bowl last year. So we'll see if they can put it together. They don't have, we will pave our own way to the Super Bowl level talent or chutzpah really this year. They're going to need some help along the way. A Jared Goff injury would be the best thing that could happen to the 49ers, if to be totally honest. But they're still good, and I think will be better than what we've seen so far.
Yeah, I think really when you're looking at the rest of the season, I think honestly the best is yet to come, and there's a lot of opportunity for growth. And that's really what I think the kind of the genesis of our conversation has been is, yeah, we've been able to identify where there's maybe been holes and things like that, but there's still a lot of opportunity left. And with opportunity comes the situation where the San Francisco 49ers can take a hold of it, and that's on to them. They got to execute. They got to play their game. And so it sounds like you seem optimistic of how this season.
I am. Now, hey, you go 3-4 in your next, or go 1-3 in your next 4 games. Optimism's going to leave town quickly. Here it is.
Right.
How many must wins can you fit before week 10? Well, it feels like about 4, because this is now a must that you have to send Tampa to its 3rd straight loss. You have to come out of the bye week executing the right way for anyone to believe that this is going to go in the right direction, because beat Tampa Bay, come home, beat Seattle. Those feel like non-negotiable acts.
Yeah.
And then you got the grace that will allow you to then split your next 2 games, which are brutal, at Green Bay, at Buffalo, or is it at Buffalo, at Green Bay? I can't remember which one's first, but those, if you can win these 2 and then just split those 2, that's 3-1 is where you need to be. And if you're 4-0, well, then holy shit, everyone's going to be talking about how the Niners, I knew it all along, Brad.
They're all the way back. We knew it. Never a doubt, Damon.
Let me tell you, Brock Purdy, give him $70 million right now.
Never a doubt, Damon. You know we're going to hear those takes all over the place. Never a doubt. We knew. That was just, oh, gosh, I can't wait. I hope that's how it plays out, Damon. I really do, because I think it would be a lot of fun, not only, as, us as content creators who cover the team, but again, man, getting the fan base back on track. We deal with the fans every single day. So we feel the energy of the fan base. It's one of the beauties of being able to have the platforms that we do. And it would be great to kind of get that energy back on the right direction. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Look, here, I'm trying to catch some of that Brad Graham energy. I mean, that's what I'm looking for. That's what I need. There's some discussion going on about which content creators are buying subscribers right now. I see that going on in the chat right now. And the answer is, I think you have identified a correct answer there for who is buying. I will never. My broadcasting instincts will never allow me to buy a subscriber. To me, that's like stolen valor. That's like pretending to be, as someone who is an actual broadcaster, pretending that people are listening to me. I can't even think about it. I can't wrap my mind around it. I will never do it. But what I would love to do is for you, Brad, to do a fraction of your audience start following me. I can go up and kiss my wife tonight and say, honey, we've done it. We're on the right direction. Brad Graham is helping this out. I would truly, truly appreciate your vast audience tapping in, dropping a subscribe and a like on my channel. It would really, really help. And we're just underway. How long have you been doing this, man? You are so good at this. How long have you been in this? Again, when I was on the radio, I didn't even know there was like a Niner YouTube like universe. I was not aware. I was old man media holding on to old man habits. How long have you been doing this? Like 3-4 years?
So I started covering in 2017, started out with an Instagram page.
Okay.
And we spread out to different platforms and started YouTube January 2021. And I am of the same mindset. I'm a social media marketing guy. So that's where, all this stuff is really driven from. Every day for probably 3 different times a day, I have Instagram asked me to boost my post. I will never, ever in my life pay money for social media reach. It goes against everything I stand for. If you're not doing it organically, then what are you doing? Because those numbers, they gotta be generated organically. You have to have an organic following. You have to have organic engagement, or else the algorithm doesn't like it. That's another reason. Like, not only is it just in bad taste, but the algorithm poo-poos against it, and you're just going to further hurt yourself. That's one of my feathers in my caps, Damon. I have never purchased a boosted post. I have never done any of that. No fake subscribers, nothing. And everything I've done is organically built, and it's a huge sense of pride that I do have in what I've been able to do.
You've done it the right way. You provide outstanding content. Now, do you have a cameraman who sits at Levi Stadium filming everything for you? Because it all seems to come from the same angle, the corner of that end zone kind of seat that I'm guessing is your season ticket. Or are you actually there, like, enjoying the game, or are you constantly filming everything? You've got a tripod in front of you. What are you doing there?
I film everything. My goal is to be on the sideline filming, but until that can happen, I'll be in the stands filming, doing what I got to do. And
how do we make that happen? Who do we need to call at the 49ers to say this man is a freaking internet titan? You want him on that sideline. You need him on that sideline. Just like Jack Nicklaus and A Few Good Men. You want him on that wall. You need him on that wall. Brad, you really are. You're great at what you do. As I have tried to just emulate, what you have already mastered and created. I've been on your channel looking for how-tos, advice, and just watching and learning by what you've done. So let me just say thank you. You've been quite an inspiration to me. And the fact that you listened to my old radio show and now we're doing this together, it's just, the world is small, man. It's pretty cool. And it was great seeing you at that Super Bowl. Thank you so much for doing this with me today, for having me on your channel to be expose me to all of these subscribers that you already have. I deeply, deeply appreciate it. And I hope we can do this again. Let's do this again in a couple more weeks, man. Now I feel like we're YouTube friends now.
I think so. Damon. We definitely got to do it again. And again, if you're a subscriber to me and my channel, definitely make sure you go sub to Damon Bruce. You got to, man. You got to. Bay Area legend in the building. And this has been a fun conversation. Hopefully all of you guys in the chat liked it. I saw a lot of good feedback there, Damon. They seem to like the pairing. So I definitely think we're going to have to link up for future streams.
Here's what I learned in radio. It doesn't matter if they love it or they hate it. As long as they're just not looking at it and going, meh. You know, you want passion in either direction. I hate this guy, therefore you're going to watch what you hate, because people love to watch what they hate. Or you love this guy, but the last thing you want is, I'm indifferent to these guys. So there you go. Thank you very much to everyone. If I'm new to you, I am indeed an acquired taste, but let Brad be your content creator sommelier. And thank you very much for recommending me and pouring me to your audience. I do appreciate it, Brad. You're the best.
Of course, man. Great show. Shout out to everyone who was in the chat. Great vibes, man. Make sure you go like both videos on both channel. And of course, make sure to sub to Damon, all that good stuff. We'll definitely link in the future. But again, appreciate everyone for tapping in. Damon and we are out for now. We'll catch you later. Peace. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to